I sat at my kitchen table last Tuesday morning, staring at my bank statement. The numbers looked wrong. They'd looked wrong for months, maybe years. But that morning, for the first time, I really saw them. The automatic transfer line read, Robert Hayes minus $8,000. It had been there every month for 84 months straight. Hello. My name is Eleanor Hayes. I'm 64 years old, and I live in Quincy, just outside Boston. I'm not sure why I'm telling this story now. Maybe because I need to hear myself say it out loud. Maybe because someone else needs to hear it too. Let me go back 11 years. My husband Thomas died on a Thursday in March. Heart attack. He was 57. We'd been married 32 years. The funeral was small. Our son Robert flew in from Connecticut with his new wife Nicole. They stayed 3 days. Then they left, and I was alone in our house for the first time since 1981. Thomas had been a good man. A postal worker. Steady. Reliable. But he hadn't left much. The pension was minimal. The life insurance barely covered the funeral and his medical bills. What remained was this house, some furniture, and about $11,000 in savings. I remember sitting in our bedroom that first month, looking at his empty side of the closet. I was 53. I had no real career. I'd worked part-time jobs here and there while raising Robert, but nothing substantial. Nothing with benefits or a future. I started cleaning houses that summer. Mrs. Chen down the street recommended me to her bridge club. $20 an hour, cash. I did 3 houses a week at first, then 5. My knees hurt by evening, but the work kept me busy. Kept my mind from wandering to that empty closet. Robert called every Sunday. "How are you doing, Mom?" he'd ask. I always said fine. What else could I say? That I was learning to cook for one? That I talked to the television sometimes just to hear a voice? He got married a year after Thomas died. Nicole was pretty, blonde. She worked in marketing. They had a nice apartment in Stamford. Robert had a decent job at an insurance company, but they were young. They wanted things. A house. Kids someday. The life we'd all been taught to want. When Robert told me they were expecting, I cried. Good tears, for the first time in months. A grandchild. Purpose again. I flew down when baby Audrey was born. Stayed 2 weeks. Changed diapers. Did their laundry. Cooked meals and froze them. Nicole seemed grateful but distant. She was tired. New mothers are always tired. "Mom," Robert said one night while Nicole was sleeping, "we're struggling a bit with expenses. The apartment rent went up, and Nicole's maternity leave is unpaid." I didn't hesitate. "How much do you need?" That's how it started. $2,000 that first time. Then another $3,000 when Audrey got sick and the insurance didn't cover everything. Then $1,500 for their security deposit on a bigger apartment. I picked up more work. Started babysitting for the Kowalski's twins after school. 4 days a week, 3 hours each day. $48 a day. I took in alterations too. My mother had taught me to sew, and I was good with a needle. Hemming pants, taking in dresses. Another 100, maybe 150 a week. Every dollar went to Robert. Then came the inheritance. My grandmother's house in Dorchester finally sold. After it was divided among the cousins, my share came to $180,000. The lawyer deposited the check on a Friday afternoon. I stared at my bank balance that night. More money than I'd ever seen. More money than Thomas and I had saved in our entire marriage. My cousin Doris called the next week. "Eleanor, you should talk to a financial advisor. Make that money work for you." She gave me a name. Julian Perry. Young man, maybe 35. Sharp suit. He had an office downtown with a view of the harbor. He asked me about my expenses, my goals, my needs. "I don't need much," I told him. "But my son, he's got a family, a mortgage now. I want to help him." Julian nodded. He set up an investment portfolio. "Conservative, steady. You should see around 5,000 a month," he said. "Maybe a bit more in good years." 5,000 a month. I could barely imagine it. Robert was thrilled when I told him. We were having dinner at a chain restaurant near his house. Nicole was there, holding Audrey, who was 2 by then. "Mom, that's incredible," Robert said. "This changes everything for us." Nicole smiled, but her eyes were calculating. I saw her doing math in her head. "How much of that could you send us?" she asked. Direct. No pretense. I should have paused. Should have thought. But I was looking at Audrey's face, those big brown eyes, and I just wanted them to be happy. Wanted them to have the life Thomas and I never quite achieved. "How about 8,000? I said. "I'll keep 2 for myself." But that wasn't quite true. My expenses were low. The house was paid off. I didn't drive much. I bought my clothes at Marshall's, my groceries on sale. That 2,000? I usually sent more to Robert anyway, whenever he called with an emergency. The water heater. The roof. Audrey's preschool. Julian set up the automatic transfer. First of every month, he confirmed. 8,000 to Robert Hayes. "Are you sure about this amount, Mrs. Hayes?" I was sure. I was Mom. This was what moms did. That was 7 years ago. 84 transfers. $8,000 each. $672,000. Plus the extra amounts. The big ones. The $45,000 for their down payment on the house they bought in Fairfield. The $12,000 for Robert's SUV when his old car died. The $8,000 for Nicole's dental implants. The $15,000 for Audrey's private school tuition when they didn't like the public school options. The calculator on my phone showed me the total last Tuesday: $836,000. I'd sent my son $836,000 in 7 years. I sat there, looking at that number. My coffee had gone cold. The kitchen was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. The same refrigerator I'd had for 19 years because I'd never thought to replace it. I was wearing a cardigan Thomas had given me in 1998. The elbows were pilled. 3 buttons were mismatched because the originals had fallen off. My kitchen table had a crack in it from when Robert was 7 and dropped a toy truck. I'd never replaced the table. Couldn't justify the expense. But I could justify $8,000 a month to my son. I picked up my phone. My hands were shaking slightly. I wasn't angry yet. I wasn't anything yet. I was just seeing clearly for the first time in 7 years. There was an email from Robert in my inbox from 2 days ago. "Hey Mom, the transfer came through. Thanks. Nick says hi. We're taking Audrey to Cape Cod this weekend. Should be nice. Cape Cod. I hadn't been on a vacation in 11 years. I closed my email. I sat there as the morning sun moved across my kitchen floor. The house was so quiet. It had been quiet for so long. Something was shifting inside me. Something I didn't have words for yet. But I could feel it, the way you feel a storm coming before you see the clouds. I looked at the calendar on my wall. Cousin Sarah's daughter was getting married in 6 weeks. I'd been thinking about what to wear. My closet had 2 dresses nice enough for a wedding. One was from 2007. One was from 2011. Maybe it was time for a new dress. Maybe it was time for a lot of things. The dress was beautiful. Emerald green. Simple lines. Nothing extravagant. It was on a sale rack at Nordstrom Rack, marked down to $98. I held it up to myself in front of the mirror. The color made my eyes look brighter. Less tired. I couldn't remember the last time I'd looked at myself and thought, bright. I took a photo and texted it to Robert. "What do you think for Sarah's wedding?" His reply came fast. "Looks nice, Mom." Then, 3 minutes later, Nicole says hi. She says maybe you already have something you could wear? I stared at that message. I did have something I could wear. The navy dress from 2011. But I wanted this one. I bought it anyway. $98. I used my debit card and my hand shook a little when I entered my PIN. Not from fear. From something else. Something like defiance. That Sunday, Robert and Nicole came for dinner. I'd made pot roast. Audrey was away at a friend's house. Nicole saw the Nordstrom bag on my chair before I could move it. "Did you go shopping?" she asked. Her tone was light, but there was an edge underneath. "I bought a dress," I said. "For the wedding." "Oh." She opened the bag without asking. Pulled out the dress. "This is pretty. How much?" $98. The room went quiet. Robert looked up from his phone. Nicole folded the dress carefully and put it back in the bag. "Eleanor," she said. Her voice was different now. Sharper. "Can we talk for a minute?" Robert stood up. "Babe, let's just." "No, Rob, we need to discuss this." She turned to me. "Eleanor, we're grateful for everything you do for us. You know that. But we've been talking, and we think, well, maybe you should consider downsizing." I just looked at her. "This house is too big for you," she continued. "And old houses, they eat money. Repairs, utilities, taxes. If you sold it and moved into a nice senior apartment, you'd have so much more freed up." "Freed up," I repeated. "For yourself," she said quickly. "And, you know, for helping us with Audrey's expenses. She's going to need braces soon. And we're thinking about a second child." I set down my fork. "Nicole, I bought a dress." "I know. And that's fine. That's your money. But..." She glanced at Robert. He wasn't looking at either of us. "Eleanor, you're 64. At your age, you need to be practical. Live minimally. Save for your own old age. You don't need new dresses. You need security. Live minimally." Something cracked open inside my chest. "I do live minimally," I said quietly. "Well, yes, but I live in minimal clothes. Minimal furniture. Minimal everything. For 7 years. My voice was still quiet. Too quiet. "While you bought a 4-bedroom house in Fairfield." Nicole's face went tight. "That's not fair, isn't it?" Robert finally spoke. "Mom, That's not what she means. But I wasn't looking at him. I was looking at Nicole. At her silk blouse. Her designer bag on my old couch. Her perfect manicure. They left 20 minutes later. The pot roast sat half-eaten on the table. I didn't clean up right away. I just sat there in my kitchen that still smelled like my grandmother's house because I'd never had the money to renovate. The money. I went to my bedroom and opened the drawer where I kept my financial statements. I'd been avoiding them. Now I spread them across my bed. Julian's quarterly reports. My bank statements. Credit card records from when I'd helped with Robert's emergencies. I found a notebook. Started writing numbers. The automatic transfers $672,000. The down payment $45,000. Robert's SUV $12,000. Nicole's dental work $8,000. Audrey's school $15,000 per year for 3 years. $45,000 total. Robert's hospital bill when his insurance lapsed $6,200. Their new appliances $4,800. On and on. At the bottom of the page, I wrote $836,000. Then I looked at Julian's most recent statement. My investment account. The one that was supposed to generate $5,000 a month. The balance was $68,400. I'd been eating into the principal. For how long? I counted back through the statements. 18 months. Maybe 2 years. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were perfectly steady. I picked up my phone and called Julian. Got his voicemail. "This is Eleanor Hayes. I need to see you this week. It's important." Then I called another number. Lawrence Mendez, the lawyer who'd handled my grandmother's estate. "Mr. Mendez? This is Eleanor Hayes. I need to update my will." Julian met me Tuesday morning. Same office. Same harbor view. I showed him my notebook. "How long?" I asked. "At this rate, how long until it's gone?" He looked at the numbers. His jaw tightened. "Mrs. Hayes, I didn't realize you were making additional withdrawals beyond the monthly transfer." I wasn't. He was. Emergencies. Julian was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "At this rate? 4 years. Maybe 3.5. 3.5 years until I had nothing. I want to stop the automatic transfer," I said. "Okay." He pulled up my account on his computer. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." He clicked several times. Typed. "Done. The next transfer won't go through. Robert will need to contact you if." "He won't need to contact me." Julian looked at me then. Really looked. "Mrs. Hayes, are you all right?" "I'm fine," I said. "I'm better than I've been in 7 years. Can we set up better security on the account? Passwords? Notifications?" We spent an hour reconfiguring everything. 2-factor authentication. Alerts for any withdrawal over $500. A new budget. A real budget. "I'd like to spend $3,000 a month," I told him. "On myself. Can I do that?" Julian smiled. It was a sad smile. "Yes, Mrs. Hayes. You can do that. You should do that." I went to Mr. Mendez's office that afternoon. The will took 20 minutes to change. "Everything to my granddaughter, Audrey Hayes," I said. "Not her parents. Just her. In a trust until she's 25. Mr. Mendez didn't ask questions. Lawyers rarely do. "And if Robert or Nicole contest this?" They can try, I said. But I'm of sound mind. You can document that, can't you? Yes, ma'am. I left his office feeling strange. Light. Like I'd been carrying something heavy for so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. I went to a salon. Got my hair cut and colored. Gray, but a nice gray. Professionally done gray. I got my nails done. Clear polish. Nothing flashy, but neat. Clean. I went shopping. Bought 2 more dresses. A new pair of shoes. A cardigan that wasn't from 1998. That Saturday, I took Audrey to lunch. Just the 2 of us. A nice restaurant in Boston, overlooking the Common. The kind of place I'd never been to. Audrey was 19 now, studying biology at UMass. She looked so much like Robert at that age. Before he got tired. Before he got comfortable. "Grandma," she said after we ordered, "you look different." "Good different. Thank you, sweetheart. Mom says you're being weird about money." I smiled. "Did she?" "She says you canceled something. And you changed your will." "I did." Audrey waited. She had that quality. Patience. The ability to listen. So I told her. Not everything, but enough. The automatic transfers. The 7 years. The $836,000. Her face went pale. "Grandma, I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know it was that much." "I know you didn't, honey. That's not right. That's not." She stopped. Pushed her water glass in circles on the table. "That's why you always looked so tired. That's why you never came to my school events. You were working. I was working. For us. For all of you." Audrey's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry," I said. "Just be different than they are. Can you do that?" She nodded. Wiped her eyes. "The will. You left everything to me?" "I did." "Why?" I reached across the table and took her hand. "Because you're the only one who ever asked how I was and waited for a real answer." We sat there for a long time. Our food came and went. We talked about small things. Her classes. Her roommate. A boy she liked. When I drove her back to campus, she hugged me hard in the parking lot. "I love you, Grandma," she said. "Really love you. Not the money. You." "I know, baby. I know." I watched her walk to her dorm. Watched until she disappeared inside. Then I drove home to my quiet house in Quincy. The house that was too big, according to Nicole. The house that was mine. The first of the month came 3 days later. Robert called at 10 a.m. I didn't answer. He called again at noon. At 2 p.m. At 4 p.m. Finally, at 6 p.m., I picked up. "Mom," he said. His voice was tight. "The transfer didn't come through. Did something happen with the bank?" "No," I said. "Nothing happened with the bank." Silence. "I don't understand. Robert, we need to talk. Come over Saturday. 2 o'clock. Just you." "Mom, what's going on?" "Saturday," I said. 2 o'clock. I hung up. My heart was pounding. But my hands were steady. So steady. I looked at the emerald dress hanging on my closet door. At my new shoes on the floor beneath it. At myself in the mirror. I looked different. Good different. I looked like someone who'd stopped living minimally. Saturday came slowly. Or maybe I was just too aware of every hour. I cleaned the house Thursday. Not for Robert. For myself. I wanted the space to feel right. Neutral. Mine. Friday, I practiced what I'd say. Stood in front of the bathroom mirror and spoke the words out loud. They sounded harsh. Clinical. Good. Saturday morning, I made tea. Didn't drink it. Just held the cup. At 130, I heard his car in the driveway. Early. He was always early when he was nervous. I opened the door before he could knock. Hi, Mom. He looked tired. Older than 38. There were lines around his eyes I didn't remember seeing before. Come in, I said. We sat at the kitchen table. The same table with the crack from when he was 7. I'd thought about that crack a lot lately. About the mother who'd said, "It's okay. Accidents happen," instead of getting angry. The mother who'd kept the broken table for 31 years because replacing it seemed wasteful. That mother felt like a stranger now. Do you want coffee? I asked. No. Mom, what's going on? You sounded weird on the phone. I put my hands flat on the table. Felt the cool wood under my palms. Robert, do you know how much money I've given you in the last 7 years? His face changed. Just slightly. We've never really added it up. I have. This week. I added it all up. I pulled out my notebook. Opened it to the page with the numbers. Turned it so he could read it. He stared at it for a long time. I watched his eyes move down the columns. Watched his face go pale. $836,000, I said. That's what you've received from me since Audrey was born. Mom, the automatic transfers alone were $672,000. Then the down payment, the car, the dental work, the school tuition, the hospital bill. Do you remember the hospital bill? I remember. $6,200 because you'd let your insurance lapse. He looked up at me. We were going to pay you back for that. Were you? Silence. Robert, I need you to understand something. That money came from my inheritance. From Grandma Rose's house. It was supposed to last me the rest of my life. It will last. You've got investments. I had investments. Had. Past tense. I pulled out Julian's statement. Showed him the balance. $68,000. That's what's left. His hands started shaking. Actually shaking. That can't be right. It's right. Julian ran the numbers. At the rate we were going, I'd have nothing left in 3 years. We didn't know. Mom, we didn't know it was that bad. You didn't ask. That landed hard. I could see it in his face. I canceled the automatic transfer, I said. It's done. No more $8,000 a month. He stood up. Sat back down. Stood up again. Mom, you can't just. We've built our entire budget around that money. The mortgage payment, Audrey's school, everything. Then you'll need to rebuild your budget. We can't. Not without months of planning. We'll lose the house. Then sell the house. He stared at me like I'd slapped him. Nicole doesn't work, he said. His voice was rising. I'm the only income. We can't afford the mortgage on just my salary. You know that. You've always known that. Nicole can get a job. She takes care of Audrey. Audrey is 19 and living on campus. Robert's face flushed. This isn't fair. You said you wanted to help. You offered. We didn't force you to do anything. You're right, I said. I offered. And I gave. And I gave. And I gave. For 7 years, I gave everything I had. We're grateful. Are you? He stopped. Robert, look at me. Really look at me. He did. I don't think he liked what he saw. I'm wearing a cardigan from 1998. Do you remember what you wore to Audrey's graduation? A new suit. $500. I know because Nicole told me about it. Mom, I drive a 2006 Honda. You drive a 2022 Escalade. I bought groceries on sale and ate leftovers for a week. You took Audrey to Cape Cod last month. You could have come to Cape Cod. With what money? My voice cracked. I didn't mean for it to. With what money, Robert? I was sending you $8,000 a month. Every month. While I worked 3 jobs. While I hemmed pants for $10 each and cleaned other people's toilets. His eyes were wet now. I didn't ask you to do that. You didn't have to ask. I'm your mother. That's what I thought mothers did. Sacrifice everything. Give until there's nothing left. So this is punishment? Cutting us off? No. I shook my head. This is survival. We sat in silence. Outside, I could hear Mrs. Chen's wind chimes. They'd been ringing for 11 years. Since Thomas died. I'd never really heard them before. There's something else, I said. Robert looked up. I changed my will. Everything goes to Audrey. Not you. Not Nicole. Just Audrey. In a trust. The color drained from his face completely. What? You've already received your inheritance. In advance. $836,000 worth. Mom, you can't. I can. I did. Mr. Mendez filed the papers on Tuesday. Robert stood up. This time he didn't sit back down. Does Nicole know about any of this? Nicole doesn't need to know anything. This is between us. She's my wife. And I'm your mother. Not your ATM. He flinched. Actually flinched. Robert, I said more softly. I love you. I will always love you. But I can't keep doing this. I can't keep giving you money I don't have while I live like a pauper in my own house. We'll pay you back. Every penny. I swear. With what? You just said you can't afford your mortgage without my money. He had no answer. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to go home. You're going to sit down with Nicole. You're going to look at your finances honestly. You're going to make hard choices. Sell the house if you need to. Downsize. Get a second job. Have Nicole get a job. Do what every other family does when they can't afford their lifestyle. But we had an understanding. We had an assumption. You assumed I'd keep giving forever. I assumed you'd eventually become independent. After Dad died, you said. I said I'd help. I did help. For 7 years. But help isn't supposed to be permanent. Help is supposed to be a bridge to somewhere better. Not a crutch you lean on until it breaks. Robert's hands were on his head now. He was pacing. Nicole is going to lose her mind. She's going to absolutely lose it. Then she loses it. You don't understand what this will do to us. I understand perfectly. It will force you to grow up. The words hung in the air between us. Cruel. True. Robert looked at me with something I'd never seen before. Not quite anger. Not quite betrayal. Something worse. Disappointment. I thought you were different, he said quietly. I thought you actually cared about family. I do care about family. That's why I'm doing this. Because watching you become a man who takes without thinking, who uses without gratitude. Who expects his mother to fund his life indefinitely? That breaks my heart more than you'll ever know. He grabbed his keys from the table. I need to go. Robert. No. I can't. I can't do this right now. He walked to the door. Stopped. Turned back. What was the point, he asked, of having a parent who helps if you're just going to take it all away? I stood up. Walked to him. We were the same height now. When had that happened? The point, I said, is that I'm still here. I'm still alive. And I deserve to live with dignity. Not just exist. Not just survive. Live. He left without another word. I stood in my doorway and watched him drive away. Watched his taillights disappear down the street. Then I closed the door. Locked it. And felt nothing but relief. Is that terrible? That I felt relieved? I went to my kitchen. Made tea. Actually drank it this time. My phone started ringing at 4 p.m. Robert. I didn't answer. At 430. Nicole's number. I didn't answer. At 5. Robert again. At 530. Nicole again. I turned my phone off. The sun was setting. My house filled with orange light. It made everything look softer. Gentler. I'd bought groceries yesterday. Real groceries. Not on sale. I made myself salmon with roasted vegetables and a glass of white wine. I ate at the table. Slowly. Tasted everything. When I was done, I washed my plate and sat in my living room. The silence was different now. Not empty. Full. I'd told my son no. For the first time in 7 years, I'd told him no. And I was still here. Still breathing. Still whole. Maybe more whole than I'd been in a very long time. My phone was still off. I left it that way. Whatever storm was coming, it could wait until morning. Tonight, I just wanted to sit in my house, in my quiet, and feel what it was like to belong to myself again. Monday morning, my phone had 37 missed calls. I turned it back on at 7 a.m. Watched the notifications flood in. Voicemails. Texts. More texts. Robert, Mom, please call me back. Robert, we need to talk about this. Robert, you're making a huge mistake. Nicole, Eleanor, we need to discuss this rationally. Nicole, this affects our entire family. Nicole, you're being incredibly selfish. I deleted them all. Made coffee. Watched the sunrise. The calls started again at 8. I let them ring. At 9:30, someone knocked on my door. Hard. Insistent. I looked through the window. Nicole's Mercedes in my driveway. I almost didn't open it. Almost. But I did. Nicole stood on my porch in yoga pants and a North Face jacket. No makeup. Hair in a messy bun. She looked like she'd been crying. We need to talk, she said. I said what I needed to say to Robert. Well, now you need to hear what I have to say. She pushed past me, walked right into my house without being invited. Nicole, do you have any idea what you've done? She spun around. Her face was red. Any idea at all? I stopped funding your lifestyle. Yes, I'm aware. Our lifestyle? We're barely scraping by, Eleanor. We're not rich people. We're a normal family trying to give our daughter a decent life. Audrey is 19 and on scholarship. That's not the point. Then what is the point? Nicole's hands were shaking. The point is you made a commitment. You said you'd help us. We planned our entire lives around that promise. I helped for 7 years. $836,000. That's more than most people make in a decade. And we're grateful. Are you? She stopped, stared at me. Because grateful people don't demand their 64-year-old mother-in-law clean houses to send them $8,000 a month. You offered. I offered to help. Not to become your retirement plan. Nicole's face went hard. You know what this is? This is elder abuse. I laughed. Actually laughed. Elder abuse. Yes. Financial abuse. You're withholding support that we've come to rely on. That's a form of coercion and control. Nicole, are you listening to yourself? I've been reading about it online. When an elderly person cuts off family members financially, especially after years of support, it can be considered abuse. Emotional abuse. I'm 64, not 80. I'm completely sound of mind. Are you though? She crossed her arms. Because this seems like a very sudden personality change. Very erratic. We're worried about you, Eleanor. We think maybe you need to see a doctor. The room tilted slightly. You're trying to say I'm incompetent. I'm saying you're not acting like yourself. Maybe this is myself. Maybe the woman who gave you everything was the one who wasn't acting like herself. Nicole moved closer. Her voice dropped. Listen to me very carefully. If you don't reinstate those transfers, we will have no choice but to take legal action. Legal action. We had an oral contract. You promised support. We relied on that promise to our detriment. That's legally binding. No, it's not. We'll let a judge decide. We stood there, 2 feet apart. I could smell her perfume. Something expensive. Something I'd probably paid for. Get out of my house, I said quietly. Eleanor, get out. You're making a terrible mistake. We're family. Family doesn't threaten lawsuits. Get out of my house. Now. She left. Slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I sat down on my couch. My heart was hammering. My hands were cold. They were actually going to sue me. I called Mr. Mendez. They're threatening legal action, I told him. Can they do that? They can file anything they want. Doesn't mean they'll win. His voice was calm, steady. Mrs. Hayes, gifts are gifts. There was no contract, no written agreement. They have no case. She said oral contracts are binding. In very specific circumstances, yes. This isn't one of them. You voluntarily gave money to your son. You're allowed to stop. That's not breach of contract. That's called changing your mind. What do I do? You do nothing. If they file, we respond. But Eleanor? Don't engage with them. No calls. No texts. No visits. Everything goes through me now. Okay. And Eleanor? Document everything. Save every text. Every voicemail. If they show up at your house again, call the police. The police. For my own son. The lawsuit came 2 weeks later. A process server knocked on my door on a Tuesday afternoon. Handed me a manila envelope. Eleanor Hayes? Yes. You've been served. I took the envelope inside. Sat at my kitchen table. Opened it. Robert Hayes and Nicole Hayes versus Eleanor Hayes. Complaint for breach of oral contract and promissory estoppel. I read through it slowly. The language was cold, legal, but the meaning was clear. They wanted their money back. All of it, plus damages for financial hardship caused by sudden cessation of support. They were suing me for over $1 million. I called Mr. Mendez. He came to my house that evening. "This is garbage," he said, reading through it. "Complete garbage. But we need to respond. How much will this cost me? To defend? A few thousand, probably. Maybe 5. But Eleanor, we're going to win. And when we do, I'm asking the judge to award you costs." The next 6 months were hell. Not the lawsuit itself. That moved slowly. Depositions, paperwork, motions. The hell was everything else. Robert and Nicole started a whisper campaign. I heard about it through my cousin Doris. "Eleanor, people are saying you cut them off without warning. That you're being cruel." I gave them 7 years and $800,000. I know. I'm just telling you what's being said. They posted on Facebook. Vague things. When family turns their back on you. Learning who really cares. Audrey called me, crying. "Grandma, Mom is telling everyone you're having some kind of breakdown. She's saying you need help." "I'm fine, sweetheart. I know you are." I told them that. They won't listen. It's okay. Let them talk. But it wasn't okay. It hurt. God, it hurt. The deposition was the worst. Robert and Nicole's lawyer asked me questions for 4 hours. "Mrs. Hayes, isn't it true you encouraged your son to purchase a home with the understanding you'd help with expenses?" "I helped. For 7 years. But you gave him reason to believe that help would continue indefinitely?" "No. You never said it would stop?" "I never said it would continue forever either. But you let him believe it would." "I let him believe I'd help as long as I could. I can't anymore. Because you chose to spend money on yourself instead." Mr. Mendez objected. But the question hung there anyway. Because you chose to spend money on yourself instead. Like buying a $98 dress was some kind of sin. The hearing was in November. 6 months after the lawsuit was filed. Judge Morrison was a woman in her 50s. She looked tired. Like she'd seen too many family fights in her courtroom. Robert and Nicole's lawyer made their case. Oral contract. Reliance. Detrimental changes. Mr. Mendez stood up. "Your Honor, gifts are not contracts. Mrs. Hayes gave money to her son out of love and generosity. She has every right to stop. What the plaintiffs are describing isn't a contract. It's entitlement." The judge looked at Robert. "Mr. Hayes, did your mother ever sign anything? Any written agreement?" "No, but did she ever say explicitly that she'd support you indefinitely?" "She said she wanted to help." "That's not what I asked." Robert went quiet. Judge Morrison looked at her notes. "I'm going to be blunt. This lawsuit is frivolous. Mrs. Hayes gave you substantial financial support for 7 years. She has no legal obligation to continue. Gifts don't create perpetual obligations." Nicole was crying. Actually crying in the courtroom. "This isn't fair," she said. "We planned our lives." "You planned your lives around someone else's money," the judge said. Not unkindly, but firmly. "That was your choice, not hers." Case dismissed. Then she looked at Mr. Mendez. "Motion for costs?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Granted. Plaintiffs will pay defendants' legal costs. I'm setting that at $3,000. The gavel came down. It was over. Robert and Nicole left without looking at me. I watched them walk out of the courtroom. Watched Nicole's hand on Robert's back. Watched them disappear through the doors. Mr. Mendez touched my arm. You okay? I nodded, but I wasn't sure if I was. We walked out into the November afternoon. Cold. Gray. The kind of day that makes you want to go home and never leave. Eleanor, Mr. Mendez said, you did the right thing. Then why does it feel so awful? Because he's your son. That doesn't go away just because he's wrong. I drove home slowly. The streets were full of people. Shopping. Working. Living their normal lives. Mine didn't feel normal. It felt empty. I pulled into my driveway. Sat in the car for a long time. Then I went inside. The house was quiet. Always quiet now. I made tea. Sat at my table. My phone buzzed. A text from Audrey. Dad told me about the ruling. I'm so sorry, Grandma. But I'm proud of you. I love you. I read it 3 times. Then I cried. Not sad tears. Not exactly. Relief tears. Grief tears. Freedom tears. All of it at once. I'd lost my son. Maybe temporarily. Maybe forever. But I'd found something else. Myself. My dignity. My right to exist as more than just a source of money. I cried until I couldn't anymore. Until my face hurt and my throat was raw. Then I washed my face. Made dinner. Ate it slowly. Outside, Mrs. Chen's wind chimes were ringing in the November wind. I'd stopped being an ATM. And somehow, impossibly, I was still here. Still alive. Still whole. Spring came slowly to Quincy. I watched it arrive from my kitchen window. The same window I'd looked through for 11 years. But everything looked different now. March brought crocuses. Purple and yellow. I planted them myself. April brought new paint. I hired someone. Cream walls instead of the dingy beige that had been there since Thomas died. It cost $800. I paid without hesitation. May brought warmth. And the wedding invitation. Cousin Sarah's daughter was getting married in June. I pulled out the emerald dress. It still fit. Still made my eyes look bright. 8 months had passed since the lawsuit ended. 8 months of silence from Robert and Nicole. But not empty silence. Different silence. I'd heard things. Through Doris. Through Audrey. The way families always hear things even when they're not speaking. They'd sold the house in Fairfield. Moved to a 2-bedroom apartment in Stamford. Nicole got a job at a marketing firm. Part-time at first. Then full-time. Robert was working overtime. Taking on extra projects. Audrey said he looked tired. But different tired. Not the entitled exhaustion of a man who'd always had a safety net. The honest fatigue of someone carrying their own weight. I think it's good for them, Audrey told me over coffee in April. Mom complains all the time. But she's actually, I don't know, more present? Like she had to remember how to be a real person. I didn't feel triumphant hearing that. Just sad. Sad that it took this much for them to learn what most people learned in their 20s. But I'd done my crying. In November. In the car after the courthouse. In my kitchen with the wind chimes ringing. Now I was just living. Really living. I took a watercolor class at the senior center. Painted terrible flowers that looked like blobs. Didn't care. I joined a book club. Read novels I'd been meaning to read for 30 years. I went to New York City with Doris. Stayed in a hotel. Saw a Broadway show. Ate expensive pasta and didn't look at the price. I got a new car. Nothing fancy. A 2023 Honda Civic. But it was mine. New. With that new car smell and Bluetooth that actually worked. Julian called every month. How are we doing, Mrs. Hayes? We're doing fine, I'd tell him. And we were. The investment account was rebuilding. Slowly. But it was growing instead of shrinking. I spent $3,000 a month. Sometimes a little more. Sometimes less. But I never felt guilty. Not once. The wedding was on a Saturday in June. I drove to New Jersey alone. Took my time. Stopped at a rest area and bought an overpriced coffee just because I wanted to. The venue was beautiful. A garden with white chairs and flowers everywhere. Everyone dressed in summer colors. I wore the emerald dress. People kept staring. I didn't realize why at first. Then Sarah's sister-in-law, Helen, came up to me. Eleanor? Oh my God, you look incredible. What have you been doing? Living, I said. Well, it suits you. During the reception, I sat with cousins I hadn't seen in years. We talked about everything. Nothing. The food. The bride's dress. The weather. Normal things. Someone asked about Robert. We're not in touch right now, I said simply. I'm sorry. I'm not. The woman looked startled. Then she laughed. Good for you, Eleanor. Good for you. I danced at the wedding. Slow songs, fast songs. Didn't care who was watching. Audrey called me Sunday morning. Grandma, I saw pictures. You looked amazing. Thank you, sweetheart. Mom saw them too. On Facebook. I waited. She didn't say anything, but I saw her looking at them for a long time. I wondered what Nicole saw in those pictures. The dress she'd told me I didn't need? The smile I hadn't worn in 7 years? The woman who'd stopped living minimally. Maybe she saw what I'd finally learned. That, minimum, can mean two completely different things. They'd meant money. Spend the minimum. Save the maximum. For them. But I'd chosen a different minimum. The minimum requirement for a life worth living. Dignity. Self-respect. The right to exist as more than a walking checkbook. Those were my minimums now. Non-negotiable. July came. Then August. I got a card in the mail. No return address. But I recognized the handwriting. Mom, I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say. Just sorry. Robert. I put it on my refrigerator. Didn't respond. Maybe someday I would. Maybe not. The apology was his. What I did with it was mine. Audrey visited in September. Spent the weekend. We painted my bedroom together. Sage green. Her choice. Grandma, she said while we were rolling paint onto the walls, do you think you'll ever forgive them? I already have, I said. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Or pretending it didn't happen. It just means I'm not carrying their choices anymore. Do you miss Dad? Every day. But I don't miss who he became. Who he let himself become. She was quiet for a moment. He asks about you. Sometimes. What do you tell him? That you're happy. Am I? She looked at me. Really looked. Yeah, Grandma. I think you are. She was right. I was happy. Not the shallow happiness of having enough money or the right things. The deep happiness of knowing I'd saved myself. Because that's what I'd done, really. I'd saved my own life. On a Tuesday in February, when I'd looked at that bank statement and seen the automatic transfer line, I'd made a choice. I could keep bleeding, keep giving until there was nothing left. Or I could stop. I stopped. And Robert and Nicole's world collapsed. But mine opened up, like stepping out of a dark room into sunlight. Blinding at first. Painful even. But then your eyes adjust. And you see colors you'd forgotten existed. I see them now. Every day. In my sage green bedroom. In my new car. In the watercolor paintings on my refrigerator. In Audrey's face when she visits. In the book club meetings. In the simple act of buying groceries without checking every price. I see them in the mirror too. In my own face. The lines are still there. The gray hair. The 64 years. But there's something else now. Something I'd lost for so long I'd forgotten what it looked like. Peace. I'm telling you this story and thank you for listening because I think someone needs to hear it. Maybe you're giving too much. Maybe someone is taking too much. Maybe you've been living minimally while others live large on your sacrifice. If that's you, I want you to know something. It's not selfish to save yourself. It's not cruel to say no. It's not wrong to choose your own dignity over someone else's comfort. They called it abandonment when I stopped the transfers. I called it survival. They called it cruelty when I changed my will. I called it justice. They called it elder abuse when I chose myself. I called it freedom. On the 1st of every month, I still think about it. That automatic transfer that isn't there anymore. $8,000 that stays in my account now. Growing. Earning interest. Keeping me safe. And every month, I feel the same thing. Relief. My son may never forgive me for stopping. But I've forgiven myself for starting. For believing that love meant erasure. That being a good mother meant disappearing. I didn't disappear. I'm still here. In my house in Quincy. With my emerald dress and my sage green bedroom and my terrible watercolor paintings. I'm still here. And I'm never going back to minimum again. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched you in any way, if it reminded you that it's never too late to choose yourself, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe to the Grandparents' Memories and Life channel. Hit that like button and turn on notifications. These stories matter. Your story matters. And sometimes, we all need to be reminded that we're worth more than what we give away. Take care of yourself. Really take care. Because you deserve more than the minimum too.